Ladies and gents, thanks for joining us today. I don't know how it feels for you, but it feels like after Tuesday midday, it's kind of like the home straight. So I appreciate you sticking with us. The topic we have for the next hour is all about bespoke luxury travel and how it is evolving and continues to evolve. To introduce myself briefly, my name's Stephen. I am the editor of Destinations of the World News. Our name and logo is up on the screen. We are distributed primarily across the UAE in airport lounges and hotel suites. I'm delighted to introduce Candice de Cruz from Marriott Luxury. Why don't I put her name and face up on the screen? Joined by Michael Marshall from Minor Hotels and Saurabh Rai from Preferred Hotels. Thank you for joining us, guys. I was actually looking a little bit into the history of personalization, and then I realized there's a pub down the road from where I live in North Wales, which has personalized pint glasses on the wall and has done probably for about 100 years, which kind of led me to believe this is really nothing new in hospitality, but it is a kind of increasingly expected trait for a hotelier to know their customer, to anticipate their every move, and to kind of offer something above and beyond, perhaps, and kind of earn that kind of luxury moniker, perhaps. So, Candice, I'll start with you. Just want to get a sense of the role of the hotelier in kind of offering a level of bespoke luxury that kind of goes above and beyond what is listed on the tin, so to speak.
So, as you rightly said, personalization is not new. It's actually been at the core of everything that we do in hospitality. It has always been about really having personal relationships with our guests. What's changed is the level of personalization. I think the days where you would just have a beautiful amenity at welcome or a big bowl of fruits on arrival, that you've got to go beyond that. Personalization today is what I call as mastering anticipation. Okay, now much louder. Yes, it's all about mastering anticipation. And when I talk about anticipation is knowing what the guest wants before they know what they want. And that's what we believe today personalization stands for.
So, gentlemen, I'll offer it up to you. I mean, how do you kind of factor in that anticipation? How does that work? Where does that process begin? Michael, let's start with you.
I mean, I think now everybody's prepared to give you a lot of information about themselves. If you look at, your Facebook or Instagram or anybody who has all these social media accounts. So I think what we see now is that you've really got to be able to use that data. And what you need is a very good CRM platform. So what we did 2 years ago is we had all this data and we put it all into a big data warehouse, central data warehouse that we've got on all our customers now by brand, a single customer view. So we can see if you stayed in an Anantara, or you stayed in a Tivoli, or you stayed in Navani, how many times you stayed. But critically, it's about, what are your preferences? And, if we're able to personalize our communications and our service delivery based on your preferences or your likes or what you spend on, then we can really give you an experience like you've mentioned, actually. We sort of know what you want before you know it. So if we know you use spa or you're very keen on red wine or whatever it is, we can make those suggestions as soon as you arrive at the hotel, which then really gives you that experience. You feel recognized, you feel that you're important, and you get a very warm welcome.
Saurabh, what I'm going to ask you is to kind of elaborate a little bit on the transformational side. I think travel is kind of evolving in a sense from being something of just a rest and recuperation process to something about more on the side of self-actualization, and the kind of motivations are changing as well. How do you factor that in? You feel free to weigh in on the last question as well, on the role, but just elaborate a little bit on that as well. That would be great.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. Good afternoon, all. On the transformation side, I'm going to cut this in two slices. One is, my fellow panelists commented on the personalization. Now, Preferred Hotels and Resorts has got a bit of a unique model. We are a collection of independent hotels and experiences around the world. So what we are seeing is that, as true as it is that personalization in the experience within the realm of the hotel premises is very important, there are some limitations to it. This is just my personal opinion as an industry peer. What we are seeing more and more through our independent properties is the ones that are able to do personalization extremely well are expanding the boundaries of what a hotel can deliver by imagining a hotel as a representation of the destination itself, right? So when the hotel can become the window to the destination and embrace the best of the culture, the gourmet, the history, the architecture, and almost become like the signature of the destination, the canvas of personalizing the experience is way bigger, right? And that is transformative experience as a hotel can imagine. The second side of it is transformational travel, right? Now, again, at Preferred, we say it, believe in travel, right? It's not just about accommodation or what you can deliver to a guest within a hotel environment. It is people to people. Now, slight stir and provocation in here is in terms of experiential travel. Many would call it a bit of a compromising on authenticity. Travel itself is an experience. So what do you mean by experiential travel? When you travel, real travel is when you meet people. So people to people makes us better. We believe in travel. When you go and you see people from another culture, from another country, and you operate and interact in a natural environment, you come back transformed. So I think as the ambassadors of hospitality and believers in travel, we also have the responsibility of being slightly careful about how much orchestration we do in the nature of travel. The authenticity has to prevail, and that is transformative by itself.
So feel free to weigh in.
I'd love to add to that.
Please.
So I think experiential travel has evolved. It's moved from experiences, which used to be the buzzword of yesterday, to transformational travel, which is the buzzword of today. What does transformation really mean? Going back to what you mentioned a little earlier, self-actualization. That's actually the new buzzword. What is self-actualization? If I have to break it down, it's discovering yourself. That links back to transformational travel. When we look at luxury consumers today, they are very much invested in discovering themselves. Travel is no longer a means of escaping reality. It is the reality. So as part of transformational travel, what we see in terms of trends is people really looking at coming back, feeling like a new person, connecting with a destination, a brand, whether it's a hotel, whether it's a dining experience that really touches them emotionally, where they have deeper relationships or deeper sort of understanding with that destination. So coming back feeling very different. That's what transformational travel actually relates for us.
I'd like to just get you to elaborate on how does one do that? How do you kind of, maybe you could flavor it with an example of
Sure.
How does one leave a hotel actually feeling different as you transform? That's the word we'll use.
I have an example from very close to home here in Dubai. So firstly, let me dwell a little bit more around transformational travel. I think luxury consumers are a bit harder on themselves than they were before. They have redefined what success means to them. For example, if they had a fitness regime maybe a couple of years ago, as part of redefining success, they probably now run a marathon, they do Ironman, so they're re-looking at what fitness means to them. So when we talk about transformation, they're not only looking at themselves, but they're looking at seeing how they can extend it to their partners, to their family. So an example close to home. W Hotels, we recently did what we call as a fuel weekend. Now a W consumer is largely millennial, or at least a millennial mindset, if not a true millennial. They consume fitness quite differently. Another buzzword for us, what we say as the tagline for our fuel weekends: detox, retox, repeat. It's all about being able to work hard, but also play hard. As part of transformation, we had a 3-day weekend in Dubai where you could actually go and experience the brand, experience its DNA, which is about detox, redox, repeat, but also learn, connect with the community, which again goes back to transformation because you want to live like a local, and be able to push yourself, push your boundaries, learn completely different ways of fitness as part of transformation. So going back, and the people that were part of it were not locals. They came from everywhere across the globe, whether you're looking at Germany, you're looking at America, and going back to what you spoke about, CRM. We actually had experiences as part of our loyalty program. So if you were a loyalty member, you didn't need to purchase that experience. You could use your points and be part of the experience and come into Dubai and experience a fitness retreat really turned on its head through the lens of W.
Michael, we spoke about technology yesterday in your CRM, and I think, I've written about hotels and travel for a long time, but it's rare that you get to see kind of behind the scenes. And I think what was the Wes Anderson movie, the Grand Budapest Hotel, kind of, is probably my best insight into how manic things are and how crazy it can be. But obviously, technology is an enabler now for you. It gives you greater insights into your customer profile than ever before. So is that kind of where you begin the process now when someone books in? What do you know about them and how do you gather that information?
It's a very good point. And I think it's all about, once you receive the booking, the pre-arrival. So, we have a communication with the guests. It depends on how long the booking is, but, at least if it's a booking with a long lead time, then, a month before we'll communicate, we see you're interested, say, for example, in wellness. So we'll then tell them about the wellness that we have within the resort that you're going. And wellness actually is a very big hook now. I mean, we've seen how it's grown. I mean, it's actually worth $1 billion now, wellness. So it's something we're focusing on a lot. But wellness is a broad subject, from detox like you talked about, or from food, or from, the other end of the spectrum is where you're having very, very big treatments with specialist machines and doctors. So we provide the whole selection, depending on where you sit in what your interest in wellness is, and that's also transformative. We've seen particular success in the Maldives and in Sri Lanka, where we've actually pioneered this. But then, wellness covers also things like you were talking about, which is, training for a triathlon or keeping fit. So we're offering, hiking routes in Samui, or biking tracks. So I think it's really all of these things are linked. Personalization, knowing what your guest wants, could be transformative, could be, a CSR project that we're doing that we involve the guests in. And it's also about experiences. Experiences, everybody's talking about it. And if you go back to 2001 when we started the Anantara brand, we actually were one of the pioneers on experiences because we have really, truly unique experiences in the resorts where we are. So this was something that we could talk about. And, I give you a couple of examples. One is in Chiang Rai in Thailand. We have the elephant camp, where we look after around about 45 elephants that have all been rescued from work. They've all been working elephants in Thailand, which is now illegal, but still you do get elephants that are still working. So we rescue them, we look after the families in the village, we educate the children, and then we put a percentage of the money we get from the room rate into the charity for elephants. So there you're learning about elephants, you're doing something for the community, so it's a whole combination. And then in the Maldives, we've launched a new observatory. It's the only one in the Maldives, so you can learn all about the stars and the galaxy and everything from our amazing telescope. And we have a Maldivian guy who works in our front office, who's fully trained in the UK and in the US, and we call him our star guru. So he actually teaches the guests, and you get, it's completely unspoilt view of the stars whilst you're having a vacation in the Maldives.
So I didn't prep anyone with this question, but maybe another way of asking about the kind of technology side is, if I stay in your hotel, and anyone can volunteer to answer this one. If I stay in your hotel 2 to 3 times what do you know about me? What do you know that I like? And what do you know about me perhaps that you wouldn't have known 10 years ago? Just curious to see how your kind of systems and processes are enabling your staff to elevate your service.
I mean, we can track where you're spending, so we can see what actually what you're spending on. So, you know, what wine you like, or, you know, what spa treatments you particularly like, maybe what food you like, what restaurants you go to. And then we also add our own information, you know, on what type of pillows you like, or, you know, whether you always book sea view room, or so the list is extensive. But what we have is one place where we can put all that, which is something that we didn't used to have. So it was all really dependent on how good an individual hotel was, or their front office, in actually tracking this data. And a lot of it was lost. So hence you got, if you like, sometimes you got what you wanted and sometimes you didn't. So this way we can really, you know, make sure that most of your preferences are met.
So I'm just curious to know if, you know, my social media handle, my face, my, you know, my coffee preferences is kind of flashing up on a screen somewhere when I walk into a hotel.
Yeah, I think going beyond just coffee, or how you like your pillows, or whether you travel alone, I think a good example from us is what we have, a tool called MLive. We launched this a couple of years ago, and it's all about data mining. To be able to pursue a trend, you need to know what that trend, how that trend's really working in a certain market. So MLive really helps us with the surprise and delight, which is what you were talking about, where we can anticipate where you're going, anticipate why you're going, and be able to surprise you as you go there. But beyond that, it also helps us to keep a finger on the pulse of what's happening within that destination, going back to what I spoke about, transformation. The world is so digitally connected, and the fact that the audiences, or our luxury consumer, is far more digitally savvy and far more digitally influenced, just knowing preferences around coffee, or a warm bath, or anniversary is not enough.
So I'm curious, how much personalization do people want, you know, in terms of these kind of preferences? I mean, if I walked into a hotel, perhaps I'd be touched if they knew it was my birthday or an anniversary of some kind. You know, if the gardener knows my name, okay, that might, you know, phase me somewhat. But if he knew, if I'd watched, you know, the latest episode of Game of Thrones and wanted to talk to me about it, that might be a little bit much. Is there a balance here? Where do you draw the line?
Well, I think it's a very, very complicated turf. If I can give you a little bit of a, you know, a scenario inside a hotel boardroom discussion when we talk about personalization, it's a very fine line. It is a fine line because, number one, I think hospitality as an industry today is possibly addressing the most complex consumer segmentation, right? So not only is it cut by gender, by ethnicity, by geodomicile, we are catering to 5 different generations in here, right? And there is nothing in common between baby boomers and how they see personalization to millennials. Forget millennials, now Gen Z is talking millennials who, right? So it's a very broad spectrum, and personalization means differently to different people, right? So as a hotel brand, it's critical for the industry and the brand to understand who is the audience. An audience is one and a very micro set. It's not big. So yes, Stephen, I think it's a very complicated question. Now, how do we address this? My colleagues addressed the loyalty. Loyalty is the biggest pool of the customer/guest ecosystem that a hotel has an access to, and we can do a lot of fact-finding within. So another level of what we can read is, let's say, we know the trends, the spending habits, etc. within the hotel. Another initiative that we took as a brand is we partnered with American Express. American Express has a tool called Business Insights, and in BI, what you can do is you can study and profile a card holder across their spend spectrum. So now you have the in-hotel spend in full visibility, you have their social profile and digital personality fully transparent, and you have access to their spend down to where they shop their groceries and what is their favorite fashion brand. So now you can imagine with this information, how much of personalization can you embed? Now, this is where it comes down to cost of operation and what is your infrastructure within a hotel capable of delivering. Do you really want to address each guest by herself or himself, or do you want to deliver one standard experience? And now with GDPR coming in Europe, there is a very fine line in terms of you may have access, but can you use it? The consumers are ever so protective. So it is also critically important now to know Miss X as one individual, is she entitling us to go read about herself and personalize an experience? We have had examples on the shop floor where over-personalization had led to offending a guest. So this balance is going to be a discussion in perpetuity.
Yeah, I mean, there was a 2017 study by Google which said that I think it was 57% of travelers felt that their hotel experience should be based on their preferences, based on data that had been collected. Mm-hmm. For context, I think Brexit was a 52% vote. So it goes to show, even though it's a majority, technically, it can still be quite divisive. So, is there ever any pushback? It's the same question, and really, I've just asked Saurabh for both of you.
So, according to the Bain luxury report that was released last year, 71% of respondents said they would pay more money for personalization. They want you to know, again, going back to the example I gave, gone are the days where you could just give a welcome amenity with their name on it, or a beautiful bowl on arrival, or a hello based on their name. That doesn't cut it anymore. But when it comes to luxury guests, it's really finding that balance between high tech and high touch. That is actually the mystery, or what I call as mastering anticipation, is finding that true balance between how much can you use technology to really enable the guest experience, and how much can you deliver on that personal touch when you're talking about recognition. I think personal high touch in luxury will never go away, will always remain, because you want to make sure you're having a one-on-one conversation with your guest. But technology will play a key role, going back to 71% of respondents wanting more personalization, being able to do that faster. So being beyond just an enabler, taking away friction in terms of an experience. So a couple of examples just to bring it back home in terms of personalization. We last year released something around shopping rooms by attribute. So you can actually go to our website. We've just about finished the first phase. You can choose a room based on attributes. So you want a room at a higher level, you want a room with a bigger bathroom, you want a certain amount of personalization in a room. You can be, it's almost like an Amazon. You choose what you want and you check out based on your preferences. Similarly, using the balance between high tech and high touch, we've got keyless entry. We've been talking about this for a long time now. You don't want to come and meet anybody at check-in? That's fine. Use your mobile for check-in. So it's about finding that balance where personalization is key, but personalization based on individual curated experiences. So speaking to you based on what is your preference. And again, going back to millennials, I think we've heard a lot about that, millennials and millennial mindsets, or even Gen Z. Again, numbers, as of last year, that segment accounts to 47% of luxury travel. A number that we can't sort of ignore, and that number is only going to increase. So technology for them, based on the fact that they are super digitally savvy and really influenced by digital, we need to make sure that we have that right balance.
Michael, obviously Anantara, a Thai hospitality company, we always refer to famous Thai hospitality, and obviously there's a real kind of, I'm sure there's always been a personal touch there. But as you integrate new technologies, is there a balancing act there between kind of, Candice just talked about keyless technologies and kind of automation. Perhaps more millennials want to talk less to the staff. How are you kind of tinkering with your model and your process?
It's a good question, actually, and I think you have to be able to communicate to your customers across all the channels that they want to communicate to you in, or that they prefer to talk to you in. So, in the old days, it was, everybody called or sent an email. Now you need to be able to communicate in WeChat. I was in China 2 weeks ago, and the luxury travel industry there is going through a big shift. You know, if you look at the US or Europe, you have Traveler Made and you have Virtuoso, Fine Hotels and Resorts. In China, there was nothing. You know, there was just the big guys that were doing all the bookings like Ctrip. Now you have roughly around 62 of these luxury small travel agents, and they're organizing themselves into two groups. One's called Dong and the other one's Deluxe, similar to Virtuoso with the benefits. And these guys are all using WeChat. So they want to make their booking to you through WeChat and communicate to you through WeChat. So you need to have a WeChat official account, and you need to have a WeChat mini app maybe for your hotels. You know, that's the direction that we're going. But it's changing very fast, because 2 years ago, none of these travel agents existed. And they're all people, like you say, millennials. They're all young. Unlike the US travel market, where everybody is, you know, you're young if you're 70. I look young when I go there. But in China, you know, everybody's 25 to 35. And they're moving from a big travel agency or a big group like Ctrip, taking clients with them, and then offering this very personalized service, which is instant with WeChat. It could be WhatsApp, you know, in other countries. In Thailand, we have Line. You know, that's the main one we use in Thailand. It could be Facebook, Messenger, whatever it is. And it needs to be 24/7. And it needs to be in the language, of course, that everybody wants to communicate in. And it needs to be fast. So you know, this is how we're addressing that.
From what I understand, there are millennials and then there are Chinese millennials. And the statistic that I read recently was that 1 in 4 travelers by the year 2030 will be coming out of China. Wealthy Chinese millennials are traveling upwards of 4, 5, 6 times a year. So, Saurabh, I mean, in terms of what's just been said now, technologies and demographics, how do you prepare for a kind of changing customer profile and evolving kind of mix, perhaps from not just China but of course India as well? Does that affect your strategies and your processes?
I think it fundamentally changes over time. I mean, that has been this evolution and shift towards China, India, and some of these frontier now major economies has been transformative for the industry, right? So a few things I can share what we did and some of the findings and learnings along the way is, firstly, it's a ever evolving process. There is no one point in time you can tell a hotel that now you're ready for China market. Here are the 25 fixes you need to bring to your operations sales approach, and now you're ready, right? Every quarter, you got to do something new because the market, to Michael's point, is evolving very fast, right? So what we did is, this is the last decade already that we came up with a program called China Ready, right? This is when China was really blowing every other market out of the water. So we studied the market. Our sales, marketing, development teams in China got together and prepared a comprehensive plan that was taken to all our partner hotels worldwide that were expecting or hoping for business out of China. And we studied the plan saying, look, if you really want to embrace the market here is a 100-point plan that you should consider, right? Flexing and re-engineering your experience concept, your product, your service along the parameters. That's one. Second, in terms of consumer segmentation, right? China is not one market. It's probably 8 to 10 different markets, right? And it's very important for a brand to understand which of those 8 to 10 markets are you interested in, right? Because the China strategy has to be comprehensive and very pointed to the segment. I'll pick up a small example, Maldives, right? So I've been with the brand 12 years, and I've been traveling to Maldives as a personal fan of the destination for about 15 years. Initially, 15 years ago, Maldives felt very different. Today, if you land at the Malé airport, you could mistake it for being in Guangzhou or Beijing. That's the amount of Chinese market coming in there. Now, there are hotels in China, in Maldives, beg your pardon, that are completely on the tour operator contracted platform in the mass, right? That's a segment of China market. And there are others that are on the highest spectrum of luxury, experiential, bespoke travel, which are only going for the evolved, well-traveled, global, chiseled Chinese luxury traveler, right? So I think to tame a beast like China, and a lot of it applies to a market like India too, it's really about understanding the micro trends within the market, overlaying those on what your experience is, what your cost structure is in the background, and knowing pointedly what segment of that market you need to own and having a business plan for that.
That question's open if anyone wants to jump in.
So when we look at the Chinese market, obviously you've spoken about the millennials and the Gen Z. I think one key element around that consumer is their early adoption of technology and anything digital. It is a complicated market, absolutely. They have their own tools. So I guess as Marriott, we are in a very envious position because we've got some great partners on ground. So a call out there would be Alibaba. So I was recently in Shanghai, and what was interesting for me to see was people hardly use money. People use local cards based on whether it's through WeChat. You can actually have WePay, or you use Alipay, and that's basically localized transactions. So going back to when I spoke about high tech and high touch, we want to make sure that when we're talking about technology, we have the right partners to be able to deliver on that experience, because human touch is a certain important element, but making sure you take away friction from a transaction is key. So when you're looking at the Chinese consumer, you want to make sure that you find someone local so you can do business in a local voice.
Great. Before I move on, I just need to check, Lindsay, not to put you on the spot. Do we have a roving mic? Okay, I don't need it just yet. I just wanted to check that it existed. Okay, thank you. So, yeah, keep that in mind. I will open up the seminar for questions. So if you want to have a little think, I've got one or two more things to ask the panel, and then I'll open it up. So have something ready, please. So we talked about personalization being a normal and a new normal, but I'm curious to know what the next new normal is going to be. I mean, nothing ever stands still. If there's a kind of a crystal ball gazing moment, no need to give you a timeline. Let's say 5-10 years plus. How does the trend continue? What are the next steps, or is it just a case of being responsive to technologies and market trends? So I'll start with you, perhaps, Michael.
I think it's going to change. It's going to change like it is now. Every few months, the whole arena is changing in terms of distribution, in terms of customers. I think, like you say, they're happy to give you their data, their preferences, but we've got GDPR. People will want to be able to look at that, and make sure that it's correct or whatever, and we're willing to open that up. But I think as people, people's time is so precious that I think if you can come up with suggestions for what they should do when they go to a resort or a destination, and you can see all Google, for example, Google Travel and Google Hotel now is really going to change the landscape. I mean, we've been looking at it very closely. If you log in with your Gmail, then you use the maps. I mean, basically it's recommending you based on what they know from your history, which restaurants, what kind of activities, what sort of museums. So this is really going to change the landscape. They don't want to be an OTA. They're going to disrupt the area of Meta. So I think it's, we're going to see a lot of consolidation, but customers are going to still want the things that they've always wanted, which is recognition is always going to be there. Personalization helps improve your ability to do the recognition better. But I also think that going forward, and we're adopting this, is less is more is what we use in our marketing, because we don't want to bombard everybody with loads of emails or whatever it is, loads of texts or messages through the different channels that we all use now. Because of the personalization and the history we have and all the tools that you can use with the data, we're going to send the kind of things. So if we always know that you go to resorts or spas or whatever, we only send you offers on that. We don't bother to send you city centre. So that way then you're going to engage with us more and look at more of our communications. So the communications have to be dynamic, and that's the way we're going now. And that's what people want. They want the content, and they want to look at video. They don't want to read lots of text, and this is going to continue. I mean, Instagram now for us I mean, how many people are using Instagram? Probably because you're all journalists. Well, it's not as many as I would have expected, but we recently did that in a big conference we had last week. And about 50% of our GMs, DOSMs, all the guys that were there were using them. But Instagram is now the fourth biggest generator of traffic to our website. And we get over 12 million visitors to the anantara.com every year. So you can see how quickly it's changing. And that's all video and photo.
I'm dying for someone to disagree with someone else. Candice, Michael says less is more. Is that the case? And perhaps then go on to talk about your predictions.
I'm actually not going to focus on that. I'm going to pick up on two things that he said, two keywords or buzzwords that I heard in his feedback. So if you look into the crystal ball, I'd say there are three takeaways in terms of luxury and how that's going to change over the coming 5 or a little more. I'd say disruption. Use the word disruption. There's definitely going to be a lot more disruption. We're seeing, particularly in the luxury space, luxury products are getting into luxury experiences. I'll share a few examples. LVMH, we all know, bought Belmont. Just think about how deep that experience can go with the fact that a luxury house now has a luxury brand in terms of hospitality, so the crossover, so absolute disruption. And I can cite a lot more examples if you'd like. Another one that I'd like to talk about is beyond disruption, we're talking about, lost my train of thought there, self-actualization, yes. So self-actualization, I spoke about that a little earlier. So as part of Abraham Maslow's pyramid, self-actualization was right at the top. Now self-actualization, as I spoke about earlier, is self-fulfillment, what we say today, transformational travel. If you look into the future, transformational travel and self-actualization from the tip of the pyramid is going to move down further. People are going to spend a lot more time on travel to really discover themselves. It will be about who I am and what I do for myself and how do I feel after my travel. And I think the third thing, if I can cite, is consolidation. Within the luxury space or within hospitality at large, we're going to continue to see consolidation. I think a lot of the big operators are consolidating and acquiring luxury brands because it's a fact of the matter. Luxury brands tend to be crown jewels. They tend to be those aspirational gateways to a company, and those really help build loyalty and portfolio affiliation. So in terms of consolidation, I think that would be my third, looking into the crystal ball.
Sounds good. Saurabh, what are you predicting, expecting to change or evolve in the world of bespoke travel and personalization?
Well, I must admit, my crystal ball is very blurry, so I've only got 2 observations. I agree with Candice and Michael on everything that's been spoken. Sorry, no disagreement yet.
Shame.
I know you're cringing for it. First one is going forward, what I would say hyper-local, right? Experiences are going to be defined literally by local people, and luxury and all levels of brand are only going to be able to stand out by going hyper-local. To give you a few examples, what worked very well, what was received very well by the patron of hospitality over the last couple of decades is a sense of security, a sense of consistency, right? So, imagine showing up in, rural Italy and finding someone who speaks perfect English, right? And this was what was the expectation of yesterday. Now, going hyper-local is also about extreme authenticity. So how do you imbibe and embrace literally the local society into a hotel environment where people look, talk, dress, behave as they are, intertwined craftily into a hotel experience is what I mean by hyper-localization. So this is, I think, going forward, going to become the key to differentiation. And number 2 is AI. It is really about the digital economy right now. I think China is a great example of an AI-driven ecosystem that literally powers the life of people, right? From your grocery to your laundry to hauling up a cab to booking a hotel to airline to chatting with your family, everything houses within the WeChat environment, right? So how we embrace AI as an enabler and not a detriment is a big looming question. And I would share a funny personal incident just yesterday. It's about how industry can be very amenable to AI as a tech vis-a-vis other. Hospitality is all about experiences. High touch, right level of touch is always going to remain. My experience is on Aeromax. So I was just having my passport delivery coordinated, and I was talking to an Aeromax bot on WhatsApp, and I was talking to a robot. There was no human on the other side. And it took me 4 responses every time to even understand what response was expected out of me. But it is okay for a logistical firm because they don't care whether they deliver at 9 a.m. or 6 p.m. or 9 a.m. when my flight's already taken off. But in hospitality, AI, sensible AI as an enabler to the future of hospitality experience is going to be critical.
I think the jury's still out on whether chatbots are helpful or infuriating. I'm sure, yeah, the technology is always improving, so there's definitely kind of it's a bit on the fence at the moment. So I don't know where that mic went. Lindsay, are you around? So do we have any questions, first of all? Just a show of hands. Yes, there's quite a few up the front here, so I'll go with the front row. Sorry to make you sprint forwards, and we can come back to the technology conversation if needs be. Sure. So I'd love to hear more opinions about that. Could you just introduce yourself by name and company, and then ask the question?
My name is Rahul Jaktiani. I'm a producer and a host of a travel series, and I also contribute to various publications. My question is, for the most part, we've been talking about experiences within the hotel, right? Your, chocolates and your greetings and your birthday cakes and stuff. And I'm sure a lot of other hotels are doing this, but can you essentially do what a DMC does? Where if I'm flying into Jaipur and if I want to do the Jaipur, Delhi, Agra belt, can you organize that entire tour? And maybe we check into the Marriott Hotel in Jaipur, and after 2 days we go to Delhi, we check into the Marriott Hotel in Delhi, and we do Agra. And you organize pretty much, every step of the way. It's a very personal experience, a very bespoke experience. And is that something that you can do? So essentially you're doing the role of a DMC as well.
Who's the question for?
We can.
Anyone.
We can already do it. We do it in Thailand. I think what we haven't yet been able to do is actually, which we're working on now, we're building a portal where you can actually book all of those activities or in the hotel or out of the hotel, everything, online, with a code or whatever, if you're a travel agency or a person. That's definitely what people want, and that's what you see when you look at Airbnb, for example, and even Booking.com and Expedia and everything, they're all selling activities now. And that's the thing they push first. If you look at Airbnb, they're pushing the activity because there's big revenue there for everyone. But also from a customer perspective, it's a one-stop shop. And then,
exactly.
And then also so that's from a B2C, but from a consumer. But if you look at the travel agency, we've had the same kind of question. Can you not just book everything for us, so that we don't have to use a DMC? Now, that is definitely we're already doing it in Thailand.
So you're going beyond your immediate experiences, right? So if you're a safari, if you're located in somewhere, if you're one of the safari hotels, so you're offering beyond just a safari experience, you're doing a lot more.
Because the good thing is then you're in control of the quality, because otherwise, you can get, some of these experiences that people are selling,
and you know what to expect as well.
They're not up to the standard of what your guest would expect, so we do the same in Cambodia, for example. We've got these amazing experiences where you can drive. I've done it. You go to a part of the temple where no one else can go, and you can have a picnic. But you have a driver, or you can drive it yourself. I drove it myself. An old Vietnam War American Jeep, and you go through all the villages and everything, and all the fields, and then you have a picnic together with your partner or whatever. And it's amazing. But that's all done by ourselves.
Just one more question. Coming back to what you said earlier in terms of a very local experience, I had a personal on a personal trip to this Neemrana hotel chain. I stayed at the Glass House on the Ganges, close to Rishikesh, and one of the things they organized was a trip to the local village, and visit one of the staff, visit their homes. So how often do you get to know the people who serve you in a restaurant, right? So you're dining with them and they're serving you. You barely even look up half the time. But then the next morning there's a sunrise trek to his house and you're meeting his family and you're having tea with his family. And that sort of local experience was extremely enriching for me, even though I'm from India, but also for the people following me. And there are people who, from the US, when they were coming to India, they actually wanted the same hotel room with the same view and wanted the same exact experience. So that was something that was really fantastic, which I'm sure a lot of other hotels could incorporate.
But everybody's looking for off the beaten track.
Correct.
But if everybody's going off the beaten track all the time, there's going to be no off the beaten track left, And it's got to be a bit controlled because you can't have everybody pitching up in these villages,
I think finding those money can't buy moments is something that we do really well. Under our loyalty program, we've called something called Marriott Bonvoy Moments, literally pitching to experiences like that, where you're living like a local if you want, or you're going backstage at a music concert, or you're sort of dining with a chef as part of a chef's table, a celebrity chef. So having access to those experiences that you wouldn't otherwise have, and you don't really need to pay for it, you're using your loyalty points. I think that's one part of it. To answer your question from earlier, absolutely. When I spoke about the luxury consumer getting younger and younger and technology playing such a key part in their experience, we personalize experiences all the time. What we're working on is making sure that you can personalize your experience. That's the difference. We want to be the Amazon. So if you're talking about Amazon, if you're drawing parallels, it's being able to choose and also look at multi-destinations. So you're saying, I'm going from Jaipur to a Delhi. How can you do that based on what's important to you? Create or curate your own experience. I think that's going to be the future.
I think what we'll do, I'll allow you to answer this, hopefully, but we may just return to this just so we can get a few more hands, if that's okay.
Yeah.
There we are. Next question.
Hi, Jill Sinclair from Sinclair & Partners. We're actually creators and curators working for destinations, hotels, and DMCs. We work with artists, restaurants, we work with designers, artisans, exactly your point about the hyperlocal. And I think the big thing that's missing for a lot of the hotels is that you've really got to reach out into the experts in the area, maybe not be the people who are doing the experiences. A lot of the work we do for China is about authenticity, and that is really about us being able to actually present the stories and the almost the sort of what I call the inner secrets, the rare access. And I think that's where it's interesting. You come to this show, where are the retailers? Where are they? They don't understand tourism. They don't understand what you guys are pioneering. And I see the whole big thing, I'm sorry, this should be a question, is the hotel is the enabler, the host.
Sure.
It is the script writer, but I think we've got to change and look at a paradigm shift to work more closely with people to actually shift this completely. And I just want your views on who in your teams are the curators, and do you want to look outside to have those people working for you?
If I may try and sort of sum that up, are we talking like about key partnerships blended with kind of almost like a concierge service? Is that kind of...
Yep.
Oh, I think some of the concierge, it's van ordinaire. When have people got time to go and really meet the sculptor? What I'm asking, is there a shift in the hotel brand outlook about how they're going to craft and look at a push mechanic into markets to stimulate people?
Yeah, so who's curating the experiences and what are the kind of key partnerships perhaps? Hopefully I haven't twisted your question. Okay.
So I'll start with one of our brands. Absolutely, curation is very important in luxury travel. And I look at it through the lens of a W brand. We have specialized positions for some of our brands that really help on making sure that you can do things that are just not cookie cutter. We have a position called the W Insider that really is the person that opens doors, going beyond instead of looking at what does the tourism board offer on their websites, but really being a local and collaborating with the W Insider to do things differently.
So I'll add on to that one. one of the qualification criteria when we approach a prospect hotel or a resort or an experience is the level of curation and local embrace. That's how we approach our business, right? So let's take a few genres within the world of hospitality, and there has been a fundamental shift in the approach that hotels have traditionally embraced. Let's take art, gourmet, fashion, and culture, right? So there was a time where luxury hotels were synonymous with displaying the best art from 7 seas across. Today, it is really all about finding out and exhibiting the best of local art, right? And this is a big area of focus for experiential stroke luxury hospitality. Gourmet, it is all about offering the world on a platter, right? Now, a lot of that will still exist because of universal palatability, because you need to have, you have to cater to all kinds of palate, but showcasing local gourmet and food and beverage within the hotel environment, and many times which is outsourced to the local experts. Inviting in locals, they may not be an expert chef, but just to really illustrate, exhibit something which is truly hyper-local is, again, a big focus. So some of our most successful independent experiences around the world, they have that degree of local embrace and retail partnerships, to your point. And same applies to fashion too. It is not really about checking in and necessarily having the Porto or Versace linen on the bed. It is about really finding out what's locally the best that you can feel, experience, and then go by and connect with it and take that back as part of your transformative experience and education.
I think we've got time. Well, we'll go for two, maybe get three. Lindsay, I'll leave that with you. Thank you.
Thanks. My name is Johnny. I work for a company called Meltwater. We do, I don't know if you can hear me, online media monitoring and analysis. And I think one of the things today that I've been really interested to hear on the panel is the impact of social media. We've spoken a lot about sort of WeChat and Instagram and how connected people are.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me now? Is that a bit better?
Yes, much better.
I'm not too used to being on the mic. I work for a media intelligence company. I'm really interested to know what you guys think the impact of social media is going to have in your competitive landscape going forward, and how you use social media to, I suppose, oppose threats, but then also to find opportunities in the market.
It's huge. Social media is huge. I mean, going back to the previous person's question, I mean, it's all about the experience, but the content, about how you get that experience across to your potential customers, and they get engaged with it. So we use it a lot, but we get our content created locally, so the hotel teams have to do it. We have support from our PR and marketing teams. We have a content person in our Bangkok office, corporate office, but it really has to come from the hotels themselves, because they have to know their local area, they have to make that connection with the local village or whatever, and they have to have the passion with it, and that has to come through in the content that we're delivering out on social media. So it's huge. I mean, for us now, we see, as I said earlier, Instagram is the number 4 deliverer of traffic to our website.
What I think was really interesting, sorry, just as an interjection, what's really interesting about the question is that you use the word threat as well as opportunity. And I think, often social media does kind of reveal potential situations, personalities, high expectations, and so on. So I just wanted to highlight that was part of the question, because I thought that was quite an interesting word to use.
So yes, social media, I think, will never go away. It's only going to continue to grow. What's key is content will always be king, but content with context will be even bigger king. So I think we need to focus on the context of content. And I'll sort of share a little anecdote or story of sort based on something that happened last week. So a colleague of mine was talking about, he made an analogy between marketers or content creators and a little and his 5-year-old nephew. So his 5-year-old nephew has football every Saturday morning, and he would go and he went to watch his nephew. So this little nephew and his friends were looking at a ball. They kicked the ball, and all the boys followed there. He then kicked the ball again, and all the boys followed the ball again, and all were sort of fighting over each other. He kicked the ball again, and everybody followed. So the reason for this analogy is we tend to follow trends and social trends quite closely and sometimes even blindly. We say, hey, Facebook carousel, let's all do it. You'll have sometimes at our hotels, we have our GM saying, hey, you need to post 10 times a day. You have to do that. So I think making sure that you have the right balance when you adapt or adopt social media or social conversations at large is key. And making sure you have content with context is very important and vital.
Let's get at least one more. This may be the last one.
Hello, everyone. My name is Albin. I'm working for, it's better now. I'm working for International Hotel Supply, which is, an amenity provider. And my question is, with more and more brands in your portfolios, how are you going to generate some consistency, knowing that in the past it has been quite a challenge for your different groups to give some consistency regarding the different locations where are your hotels?
So with so many more brands in your portfolios, the question is about ensuring consistency. I believe that was correct. Consistency in terms of your service. And I suppose you could go the other way and say differentiation as well.
Marriott has
The most number of brands. Candice, you should take that.
Well, one thing I will tell you is brands and new brands is not going to slow down. You're going to see more brands coming, for sure. What ties them all together, and I spoke about, I'll speak about loyalty and luxury brands per se. I always talk about our luxury brands being the crown jewels to be able to attract into the portfolio. What brings them all together as part of that consistent experience is the loyalty program. Loyalty program has two elements to it. I'd say recognition and personalization. Guests continue to crave recognition and guests continue to want higher levels of personalization. That needs to be consistent irrespective of how big the company is, how many brands you have, or how small the company is.
I'm going to sneak, or I'll let you interject there. Sorry.
Well, you've been cringing for some controversy and opposition in here, so let me bring in a contra thought to it, right? So appreciate the thought, Candice. I've got an opposite opinion on this one. To me, we've talked about digital economy and social media as an enabler. I'd call it out as a leveler. So social and digital has been the biggest leveler, and I think any business right now should be reviewing the weightage allocated to the brand promise, right? The definition of brand as they stood for consumers have undergone a complete metamorphosis, and that is why brand portfolio may house 4, 40, or 100 brand. There has got to be an overarching vehicle to connect with the consumer, which in the case of hospitality has really become the loyalty program, right? And that is why you see the top marketing spent being channelized to the loyalty program, which has now become the new brand. And it's not really about the individual brand personalities, so to say, right? And this is where the resurgence of the independent hospitality space has been, they've been euphoric about it, because earlier, the power of brand as a global level as it stood a decade ago to the power of this digital leveling that's taken place. So if you are, it doesn't matter if you are a globally known brand or a very highly enriched local experience, as long as that experience is well communicated and well described and well understood by a prospect guest, they will embrace you.
Unfortunately, that has been an hour. I sense there's a lot more sort of questions in the room. I don't know if the panelists are going to be available, so I'm not going to promise their time. One bit of housekeeping that I should ask is, I know there's been a team that's been collecting photos and videos. If anyone does not want to appear on our website in terms of images and video, just come and let me know. That's fine. I'll somehow edit you out in some way. And then, yeah, I just want to invite you to thank our panelists for the past hour.
Thank you. Thank you.
For their insights and so on. I will do my best to summarize this topic online. Not today, not tomorrow, probably after the weekend. So if you want to visit our website, it's dotwnews.com, and you can find out more information about us there as well. So thanks for coming, and enjoy the rest of the travel market.